Good morning. This is Meep Mornings with Meep, and just my thought this morning is about how not to look like a dumbass. I will likely write something over the weekend on this matter, but I have written about it several times before on STUMP, going back to the first year I was doing STUMP in 2014. How not to look like a total ass. There were specific of the time examples I mentioned, and yes, all my embedded stuff is all messed up. I am not going to fix that now. It's not worth my time. But I had some rules about how not to look like a dumbass. And rule number one is do not say everything you think. And more importantly, now, do not tweet, post on Facebook, Reddit, whatever, everything you think. I will get back to that in a moment. Rule number two, if someone points out that you've made yourself look like an ass in public, you need to think about that. Now, they could be wrong. Their opinion may be wrong, but they may be right. So think about it before you pile on to your original dumbassery. And again, maybe you weren't being a dumbass. Who knows? But three, really, people do not care what you think. And they don't want to know everything you think about everything, especially opinions about themselves. I mean, first off, you don't care about my opinion about myself. Okay? Number two, you probably, or A and B, you probably don't, even if you know me personally, don't really care a huge amount about what I think about you unless you're like close friends and family, in which case we actually have a relationship. It does matter what each of us think about each other, but if just random stranger, who cares? Okay, now, some people do have difficulty understanding how other people will react and think about them, and most people are polite enough and have enough consideration that they're not going to say to your face, you're being an ass, when you're being an ass. Luckily, there's all sorts of people who get paid to tell you you're being an ass, and this is how to fix your behavior. Some of them are not paid, some of them are paid. I recommended Toastmasters, but different Toastmasters clubs have different feels, and some of them have a better dynamic, a more positive dynamic, and a lot of good feedback, and some do not. That's just life. You have to think around. I also recommended Miss Manners' books, but you have to take her seriously, and it's probably not what you think. Etiquette has to do with being considerate. It's not about fancy rules. It's actually about trying to make society work, and some of that requires shared assumptions for that to work. Okay? When you look like an ass, generally it's not other people's problems when they notice you're being an ass. I mean, it might annoy them, but the real problem is your own problem. And so you're only hurting yourself, is the concept. If you're going to break the rules, and by breaking the rules, I mean breaking etiquette, and by etiquette, I don't mean, I before E except after C. No, okay, I don't mean that. But I don't mean like put your pinky in your ear when you're drinking your tea. Okay, I'm holding this all wrong. So hold it like this, pinky in the air. Yeah, I'm kidding. That's not a real rule. But a real rule is like don't spit in people's faces. The funniest, it's not really funny, but it's only funny from a historical standpoint. The funniest etiquette book I've ever read is one that's like George Washington's etiquette book. And he didn't come up with these rules himself. I believe this was when he was probably about 17 or 18 years old, and somebody gave him a conduct book of how to be a gentleman or how to act like a gentleman. And remember, well, I don't need to get into the history. So what's interesting about George Washington is he definitely had a temper. He wanted to be thought well of, and this goes back to when he was young, and he knew he had to work on his behavior. So this book was him copying down, this is my understanding, of these various etiquette rules. And some of them are, I think, like the, outside fork or whatever. That's more a Victorian era thing. But some of it was like, don't pick your teeth with your knife while at table, like so while you're dining. You think don't speak with your mouth full is a difficult rule. I mean, some of these rules, like we don't even have to write them down now. People know they're gross because that's our etiquette. It used to be, think of Henry VIII's time. If the king is picking his teeth with his knife, what do you think? If you're breaking what I call the real rules, it's best if you know that you're breaking them, and when you're breaking them, that you're doing it on purpose. Uh, breaking a rule, yeah, a gentleman is, or a lady, is someone who offends another person, never by accident. So if they offend somebody, they did it on purpose. Okay? Um, being a gentleman or a lady was not about not offending people. Uh, it was about a shared set of rules. Most of the time, they tried not to offend other people, but sometimes they deliberately did it, and it related to those rules. So, for example, the cut direct, and some other ways of not acknowledging just the existence of a person in the room was a huge insult, but you would have to have that shared set of assumptions. That's not necessarily true now, just because we know people are distracted or it's just not required. We don't have kind of a system of where you make sure you greet everybody in the room, except for receiving lines at weddings, for example. Okay, so my last rule here was your best friends are the people who will tell you that you're being a fool when you're acting foolish or like an ass. And it's probably a good idea to listen to them. Now, if you know that's how other people see you and you're fine with it, okay, go along with it. But in a lot of times people will deny, and it's because obviously it's tough to take any kind of criticism. Okay? But you don't get better. And if you're making a mistake and or you're being seen in a certain way and you don't want to be seen in that way, it's a good idea to listen to other people. It's a good idea to listen to other people even when you don't agree with them, okay? And think about why they may have the opinions that they do. It's a thought. So I'll link to a couple of my dumbassery posts in the description of the video. I don't do these so often, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because we still have the problem of people my age and older, and we're totally middle-aged. We're definitely not young adults anymore. Gen X, we've been middle-aged for at least a decade now, are doing stuff like reacting when you have incomplete information, where there is no, sometimes you do have to react, but most people, especially on Twitter, you don't have to say a damn thing, okay? You can wait. And it's bad. I mean, yes, I know being an ass gets you clicks and gets you attention. Maybe that's the kind of attention you want. Maybe that's how you make your money. Fine. Then that means you're being an ass on purpose, and you know it because you know that gets rewarded. Okay, you do it on purpose. Know what you're doing. Never offend somebody accidentally. Bye.